Hello again, my friends. Dr. Renee Tucker here, equine veterinarian. Okay, today I would like to chat about joint supplements. If, when, and how. If you should use them, when you should use them, and how to tell if they're working. Okay, let me tell you a little story, shall I? Okay, this is a story of my dad, who's since passed away, but back in the day, he had really dry eyes. And for years that I knew, he would use he would use eye drops, different kind of eye drops. And one day he's like, these eye drops just aren't working. I've tried all these different brands. I just have to keep using more and more to keep my eyes moist. And so he said, I'm going to have to go to the eye doctor. So he goes to the ophthalmologist, who tells him, well, yeah, that's what happens. My dad's like, what? He said, the ophthalmologist said that as you use eye drops, your body becomes used to them. Okay, and your body's like, well, I got enough eye drops, got enough fluid in my eyes, I don't need to make any more. True story. And so the body becomes acclimated to those eye drops, and then the ophthalmologist ended up giving my dad a really stronger prescription for eye drops, because that's what he needed to do at the time. Okay, so this acclimating of the body to stuff that we give it is actually referred to as a negative feedback effect. Negative not meaning it's bad, it's just that it tells the body, stop, I've got enough, stop making that. So not only does that apply to eye drops, guys, that applies to joint supplements. Okay, so that's why sometimes if you run out of your joint supplement, it does definitely seem like your horse might be stiffer, maybe even lame. Because without those joint supplements, it takes a while for the horse's body to ramp back up to producing the joint fluid that it was producing in the first place. You know, we gave him supplements, and the body gets that negative feedback effect saying, oh, well, I have enough of this joint stuff, I don't need to make as much. And they stop making as much. So usually it takes about 30 days or so for the body to ramp all the way back up to its normal level of production. So I really, for that reason, or one of many reasons, do not like to suggest joint supplements just because. If your horse needs them, they need them. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But unless your horse needs joint supplements, I really suggest not putting them on it. There is that negative feedback effect, so you're actually not helping anything and spending money you don't need to spend. Okay? So as far as when do you use them, like I said, when they need them. Well, how do you know that? Well, generally if the horse is a little bit older, things start wearing down a bit more. Okay, that's true. But if you've already had body workers out who are saying, well, I've got the body moving as well as I can, maybe it's time for some joint supplements. That could be a clue. Possibly if you have your vet out and they do some flexion tests or take some, flexion tests or do some x-rays and they're like, these joints are looking a little bit like they could use some joint supplements. That also be a clue. Say, okay, great. Well, then what do I do? Well, here's a recommendation. And of course, do what you like. The thing is, all these oral products, we've got a couple problems. They're not bad problems, it's just what it is. And with an oral, so by mouth, joint supplement, one is you don't know if the horse is absorbing it. Well, first of all, they got to eat it. So let's just assume that they're eating it and not, spitting it all over if it's a powder or whatever. Okay, so let's say they're eating it, but we don't know if they're absorbing it. Some studies that have shown that horses that are in their late teens and older don't absorb these joint supplements as well as a younger horse. So there's that little question mark in your mind. It's like, well, I'm giving him this, but is he using it? Right? Did he absorb it and use it for his joints? That's a question. And the other thing with the oral joint supplements is that it takes about 30 days to load them all the way up to their maximum potential. Again, that's given if they're absorbing it. Okay, so what I like to use, just to take all those questions out of my mind, is to give injectable joint supplements first. So you can do the intramuscular or the intravenous, Adequan or Legend, or their generics. And you do whatever loading dose your veterinarian wants to give. So sometimes that's a few of those shots. For example, though, with Legend, which is IV in the vein, I love that stuff, man. I plan to take that stuff when I need it. It can do great, really. But here's the key. They have on their product paperwork that you're supposed to give a Legend injection, I believe once every 4 weeks as a loading dose. But if you look carefully at the description of that, that first shot gives you about 75% of what you're going to get in the long run after the 4 shots. So what I like to do is give 1 shot of IV Legend. Then I wait 24 hours and see how the horse does. In 24 hours, you see the potential for what's going to happen. So with many of my clients that I did with this, plenty of people be like, oh my gosh, the horse is woohoo, running around the pasture. Fantastic. Clearly feeling so much better. Okay, if that's the case, that's a sign that your horse can really benefit from joint supplements. And then at that point, you can decide if you want to continue with injectables of whatever kind, or then you can change and go to some oral supplements, but you know what you're looking for. You know the happiness of your horse, the running around, the flexibility, because you've seen it happen. And of course, at the opposite end, if you give the shot of Legend and you wait 24 hours, and he's absolutely the same, well, then I'd slow down on giving joint supplements. It doesn't seem like that's the primary problem. So that's my suggestions for joint supplements, which is try to avoid them until you absolutely need them. If you think you need them, try a shot of IV Legend first. See what your results are, and then go from there. The one other thing I want to mention is the pharmaceuticals' excellent marketing programs. Because as I'm sure you've seen, now they're talking about use joint supplements to prevent problems. Okay? This drives me absolutely insane. I hope I can be honest with you guys. They know that there's a negative feedback effect, so I feel like that is really false advertising. Now, if you're one of the people who has a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old and you're running every weekend and you're using excessive joint motion, like reining for an example, it's hard on them. All that traveling, just the crazy work. And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm saying that's their job and they're being used hard. Okay. Then yes, you might need some extra joint fluid supplement only because they can't keep up production to match their level of work. Okay? In that way, that might be considered preventative for damaging the joints because you're keeping up with the correct amount of joint fluid supplements. I hope that made sense. But other than that, guys, there's a negative feedback cycle. And they don't explain that on their little advertisements. So please, just use joint supplements when the horse needs it. And unfortunately, we just can do that by trial and error, which just means we try it and we test it and we see if it works. If it doesn't work, please stop giving it. The only thing you're doing if he doesn't need it is telling him to stop making their own. Okay, let me know if any questions about that or any questions about anything else, and I will talk to you guys next time. Thanks for listening.